Welcome back to the Podio for Property Managers series. My name is Colin Goodwin, and today's demonstration is going to go through new property onboarding. As property managers, this is likely one of our favorite tasks, and it's also one of our most critical tasks because as we onboard new clients and new properties, we need to make sure that everything gets done precisely to ensure that the transition is smooth and that everything takes place as necessary. So as you can see here, I've broken this up into two different categories. It's definitely possible to have one, but I prefer two, and that was for single families and multifamilies. So first I'm going to walk you through the single family onboarding process. Now, if you've been following along in this series, you know that we utilize a database to keep track of all information that's ever input against a property or a person. So at any given time, I can search the database and see every action. For example, if I have a property going in here, in 2 years from now, I'll be able to click on that property, and if I've had two tenants, I'll be able to see the onboarding process from when we started. So super helpful there. So the first two fields are relationship fields that link to the property and the owner database. Next, we have the management start date. As you know, this is a critical date that is going to trigger many flows based on this date. The next date I have is a property vacancy date. So say we're onboarding this property on the 4th, yet the owner or the previous tenant does not move out, say until the 16th, we know to delay our flows and our inspections and things of that nature until that point in time. So that field is really linked with this right here. Property is owner occupied, tenant occupied, or vacant. So if the owner's there, we know that they're going to move out on February 16th, even though we started this flow on the 4th. Now, you may be struggling with this in your business. If you've got a lot of properties, if you're onboarding 10, 20, 30 properties a month, this can get extremely chaotic. So this is a great, simple way to keep track of that. Next is one of my favorite buttons in this entire series, and that's the inspection schedule. If you haven't checked out the inspection video, I recommend you do so. What is so powerful about that is it automatically schedules routine inspections based on the recurrence that you select. And this is one thing I struggled early in my career as a property manager. People would say, "Oh, how often do you inspect the property?" And I would always tell them, "Oh, I drive by it all the time." But they wanted to dig in. No, actually, how often are you inside the property? Well, in reality, all I had planned was an annual inspection. And I started to fold under pressure eventually because I knew competitors were doing more inspections. So I started to sign myself up for these inspections. And as my company grew, I quickly learned that this was not an option. That if they wanted more inspections, they were going to have to pay for them. And that was a risk that I was willing to take in the sales process. So one thing that I implemented that I absolutely loved, and if you're part of SalesX or you're aspiring to be part of SalesX, I recommend this tip. If you ask, you'll likely find that it's not as big of a deal as you thought. So what I did is I included an annual inspection in my base management package. So if you paid the monthly fee, and if you are a customer for 12 consecutive months, you earned an inspection every 12 months. And they would always ask, "Well, can I get more?" Absolutely. And what the tip that I was really getting at is set your price. There's always a price for something. Instead of saying no, say, "Yes, I'll do it for this price." And if there's pushback, fine, you can adjust, but there's typically not. So what I came to the conclusion of is that if they wanted another inspection, they're going to have to pay an additional $79. And if they wanted two, it was $150. There's about a $10 savings there if you buy two. So a couple things happened when I clicked this button. So say I click the standard, it would not only schedule the routine inspection a year out from now, it would also schedule a 6-month inspection automatically. So in my inspections app, my technicians knew in 6 months that they had this inspection to go to. So it's on the log. We're tracking every single inspection for every single property. Now, my favorite part about this, it also generated an invoice in our invoicing software for the $79 to bill to the client. So that's something that I was super proud of, super happy about, that anytime they wanted me to go do additional inspections, we were making more money as a company. Now, as you grow in your business, we hope that we work with you throughout the entire process, but there's several things you can do to increase your earnings. One thing we did is a maintenance package, and you can see here bronze, you get some cleaning, you get some paint, touch up, silver. And this is a huge bonus because almost every property we went into, if the owner wasn't doing the work, there's always touch up, there's always carpets. And we always requested, and one thing I always told my clients, I said, even though it's a little bit of an investment up front to get the property repainted, to get it cleaned, to get the carpets cleaned, what it does, it sets The baseline going forward, it's a blank canvas. That way, from now to eternity, until you get that property back in your possession, we have this as the standard to go off of. And every time a tenant moves out of this property, it's going to be in this condition or better. So I always recommended that. And it was really hard to sell. They would say, well, what do I need to do? And I'd say carpets. Well, how much are carpets? Then I'd say paint. Well, how much is paint? So what I ended up doing is putting together these packages for our clients and say, hey, here's our bronze, silver, gold, and platinum packages, and they would be able to select them, and we'd be able to go from there. So you've got the maintenance limit here, and maintenance is a massive app pack that goes in this. It adds so much functionality to your business, but as you know, in standard management contract agreements, there's a maintenance limit. And a theme that you'll start to see throughout this entire process, we're going to enter this one time, and from now until eternity, every time a work order pops up for this property, a technician is going to see that maintenance limit in front of them, and it's going to have instructions. If you estimate it's going to go above this limit, you need to call the manager or call the client. So that was huge savings. If you're using a property management software right now, you likely know how much of a manual task it is to track this specific metric. Every time you get a work order request, you've got to go back, look at the contract, look at the property profile, see how much the maintenance limit was, call the owner. This eliminates all that. From now on, every work order that's submitted is going to have this at the top. The technician and the manager is going to know exactly how much they can spend based on their approval threshold. Now, one thing that we found that kept getting missed in our company is this small little item, number of keys and garage door openers. Typically, this would get documented on a move-in inspection, but a lot of the time the technician or the inspector was not a part of the sales process. And we acquired the keys to the garage door openers during the sales process, whether we're at the client's house and they just give us a set of keys at that point, or they drop it off at the office when they sign the contract, whatever it is, we were taking keys at the office outside of the technicians. And so it was imperative that we had a single point that we would document this information. And like I said, once this is logged in the database, you can see this property inspection, this onboarding as the movement and move outs occur. And you'll always know exactly what you had. Although it may be a small detail, it's definitely an important one. Now, in addition to Podio, we had a couple of our property managers using AppFolio for accounting, for the leasing, for the screening. And the way Podio played into it was Podio was a checklist for them. There were so many things that had to happen every time we onboarded a new client. And I wanted to make sure that they got done each and every time. So my staff would follow this simple checklist and we would have it on file at any given time. So they'd create the AppFolio profile, and if you hover over it, you can see how cool this is. You'd log into your AppFolio profile, and it would give people instructions. So if you've got new staff members, if you've got people who are always constantly asking you, how did you do that again? And you don't have a process, you don't have videos, you don't have anything like that, you can use this simple tool to show them how to do it every single time. It saved me hours of work. So we created the client profile. We're going to add that property to AppFolio. The checklist shows the team member exactly how to do it. Send owner's portal announcement. That was done through AppFolio, and that was a critical piece to getting the owner's portal activated. Create and publish listing, create file folder. And this is where AppFolio used to digress. I mean, really, it's good for these things, of course. And if you're saying, well, why would I use Podio outside my AppFolio software? And this is the reason. You look at this entire checklist of all these things, and really only these 4 things pertain to AppFolio or whatever property management software you're using. So it's critical that you use this outside of there. Create the file folder, yes. Now, one thing that was real important to me was a warm welcome to the client. It was an indoctrination into our company. And while we might have done quite a bit of that through the sales process, they're in a different step in their business. They need to get to know us. They need to know our processes. They need to know what to expect. They need to know the ins and outs, all the details, which takes tons of time. And I wanted to find a way to get rid of that. So every single client, in addition to ensuring that they were well taken care of, and I required our staff to complete this within 24 hours of acquiring a new property, but they would also receive a new email, but they would also be entered into an email sequence that would indoctrinate them over time and keep up with them. Just like we've talked about in other videos in the series, this added that human element, this added that client relations piece to the puzzle and avoided tons of questions. It really helped us be proactive on the front end and give those clients that impression of being well taken care of and ensuring their property was well taken care of. Now, if there was tenants in the property, we could go ahead and send them notices. Now, the cool part about this is we have the ability to actually connect this to a direct mail provider. So by simply selecting complete or send now or whatever verbiage you want to use, we could actually send letters in the mail to the tenants of this residence and never have to pick up a pen, never have to go to the post office. Literally using the information in this and then a preloaded document, we would be able to send tenant notices on the spot. One of my favorite features, because now not only our clients are taken care of, but now the tenants, if there was already tenants living in the property, we acquired the property, they know there's a new manager in town, they know the new processes, the whole 9 yards. They know to contact us, they know to get on our email list, they know to set up their tenant portal. There's so many things on that end that have to happen, and just by the click of one button, we would start them into that flow. Next step, we would set landlord revert to our company. If Section 8 was part of it, we would submit it, and then the overall status complete. So while rather simple, this would keep everything on track and ensure that that first impression of our company to the client was tip top and was the same and consistent every single time.